Welcome to the Beanpot Debate. I am your host, Tanner Bello. I am the site expert at Chowder and Champions, a fan-sided site. Alongside me today is my guest, Evan Cook.
What's up?
And we're going to kick off talking about the Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins game, which is on New Year's Day at 1 p.m. in Miami. We're going to start off giving our predictions and get into some other Patriots talk later in the show. But first, I'm going to hand it off to Evan. And Evan, what is your predictions for this game in Miami?
I know I know they haven't won down there in 3 years, but after this year's, I feel like is definitely different. Last year in that Week 17 game, they lost. What was it, 20-10? I believe.
Yeah, the last game of the year where they pulled Brady in the third quarter.
Yeah, I actually want to look this up. I believe they lost that game 20-10, but that offensive line last year was bad. This year, it's a lot different. You have that feeling that they could be able to protect Brady, and Brady's actually going to have time. I think they actually come out with the win just because Brady's going to have more time, and he actually has receivers, unlike he had towards the end of last year. As we all know, in that AFC Championship game against Denver, yeah, Edelman was there, but it was basically just the Gronk show. That was about it. And yes, they did lose last year in Week 17, 20-10. I think they actually pull out the win. I think it's a close game, but I actually think they pull one out of their ass and win.
Yeah, one of my issues with last year's game in Week 17, they kind of packed it in, and it inevitably lost them home field advantage in the top spot in the AFC, which forced them to go to Denver in the AFC Championship game, a game that they lost, a game that the offensive line was overwhelmed. But with the return of offensive line coach Dante Scarnecchi, the offensive lines look a lot better. Marcus Cannon looks really good. Joe Tooney looks pretty good too. David Andrews, the center, looks pretty good. I think as a whole, that unit's working pretty well right now, and you've kind of seen that with the LeGarrette Blount season that Blunt's having, which might, is impressive in itself, but it's also protected Tom Brady. I think that's definitely a big part of it. I think last year, Week 17, they packed it in, and they basically just said, we're not going to show up and play, not going to show up and play for a win. And inevitably, when you go from a high point where you're playing at a high level of football to basically just basically trying to coast it out, it's tough to try to kick it back up in the playoffs and turn back onto that high level. Going from a high to a low, trying to kick it back up to a high, that's not the easiest thing to do. And I think that's kind of affected him in the playoffs last year. But I totally expect this Patriots team on Sunday to go out and try to fight for that win. Tom Brady's talked about it in the media with his interview on WEI yesterday, I believe. He talked about, not resting the starters and going for the win in Miami. And it's also interesting because Miami's in the playoffs, but they're fighting for the fifth seed, I believe they can move up to at this point. So they're playing for something, and the Patriots need to win. I know there's a likely chance that the Oakland Raiders will lose, and the Patriots will seal up that one seed, but I think it's important to play hard and play for that victory. So when you do enter the playoffs, you're riding that high level of football instead of going in at a shorter stance. But I do think that if they basically have a lead going into the fourth quarter, you might see what they did against the New York Jets and bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. I think you could see Julian Edelman's snap counts being limited. I think you might see Dante Hightower not play at all. Matthew Slater, who's also banged up, might not get the start. So I think you'll see stuff like that. But I do predict the Patriots win. But I do think you're right. I think it's going to be a very close game there in Miami. The next question I have is the MVPs. For football, it's starting to talk about it. Tom Brady's chances, according to Las Vegas, went down this week. It's the first time they've actually significantly went down. Like Matt Ryan's in the conversation, Derek Carr was in the conversation, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, among others. So, Evan, what do you think Brady's chances are for MVP, and what do you think the MVP should be in the National Football League this season?
I personally think Ezekiel Elliott's overrated. That offensive line in Dallas is the best in the National Football League. You saw him on his 55-yard 55-yard touchdown run that he had the other day. The hole that he had was easily like 2 yards big. I think it is Tom Brady, and you just look at his numbers. He's this season he has 3,278 yards for a completion percentage of 66.7. So 2 out of every 3 passes are completed. 25 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a QBR of 82.2. Yeah, like QBRs, I thought it was a little bit higher, to be honest, but that's just absolutely ridiculous. There's really no other way to look at it. Matt Ryan, yeah, he's had a good year, but what have they done this year? You got to go with the team that helps. You got to go with the player that helps the team win. That has been Tom Brady.
It's interesting to think about the MVP vote right now. I think they're going to hold that 4 games that Tom Brady missed with that Deflategate suspension against him. He's actually missed 4.25 games if you count the quarter he didn't play against the New York Jets. And say he doesn't play a quarter against the Miami Dolphins at the end, that's 4.5 games that he would have missed at that point. Even with the 4 games, it's kind of tough to overlook a 12-game kind of a sample size. I mean, he's been incredible, probably the best quarterback in football over those 12 games. And I think he is statistically the best quarterback over those 12 games. But got to look at a guy like Matt Ryan who's going to play all 17 games. 16 games. You look at that. I think what Matt Ryan's done in Atlanta is impressive. Will they make any noise in the playoffs? Probably not. They haven't done that in his career. He's been a very good regular season quarterback. You look at Dak Prescott. I think he's probably going to be a Rookie of the Year contender. But overall, I think what he's done has been it's impressive as a rookie. But is it MVP caliber? I don't think so. I think with Derek Carr, before he went down with an injury, I was considering him for the MVP spot. But that injury is really going to kill him in that aspect. And I think he's going to lose some votes because of that. I think you're right. Ezekiel Elliott is probably one of the more underrated backs in football right now. Remember DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing a couple of years for the Dallas Cowboys. That offensive line's insane, the best in football. And I think you could put a lot of running backs in that situation. They're going to have a pretty good season. I think it's going to be Matt Ryan, though. I think you got to look. He's going to be healthy for that whole season, and he's had impressive numbers. And I think the 4 games is just going to count against Brady just enough that Matt Ryan's going to take home the MVP. That's just my opinion, but I think that's what's going to inevitably end up happening.
One thing I want to point out is in 2014, Aaron Rodgers, he had what was this that I just had here? 38 touchdowns and 5 picks. You look at Brady's picks; he's thrown 2 picks. Unless he throws like 4 picks this week, which is not going to happen. You got to point out the fact that he hasn't been turning the ball over. And if you don't turn the ball over, you're going to win football games.
Yeah, in his career, he's been very good. He's been very good in his career, limiting his mistakes. Those 2 picks he had this year, they're not going to really count against him. That's not a big deal. I think the 4 games missing, I think that's really what's going to count against Tom Brady in the MVP voting. I think if you have him in there for the 4 games, and if you maintain the same level he's played through this year, I think he's going to win. But the issue is he did miss those 4 games, and I think that's going to count against him just enough. Next topic here is the threats to the Patriots in the AFC. We've seen injuries to quarterbacks around the AFC, including Derek Carr, who's out. You kind of look around the landscape, the AFC playoff picture, which is all but secure. The seedings and the schedule is not, but we know what teams are going to be there and who their quarterbacks are likely going to be. So, Evan, I ask you, what team do you think is the major threat to the Patriots in the AFC?
None of them. But seriously, the only team I was actually afraid of was the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's if we had to go to Arrowhead. It looks like there's absolutely no shot of that happening. If I'm not mistaken, mathematically that can't happen. Am I wrong or right on that?
You are correct. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, the only place we could possibly go is Oakland, right?
Yeah, it could be Oakland, but the Patriots win this weekend or in Raiders loss, the Patriots would be at home.
Yeah, that's what I thought the case was. Yeah, the only team I was really afraid of was the Kansas City Chiefs, and I was going into Kansas City just because it's basically just been a house of horrors for the Patriots. The only other team I would even think of might be the Steelers, just because they've been there before, and Big Ben's, they have an actual quarterback. Is the point I'm trying to make. Other than that, Houston Texans. That was a cough, but it was more of a throw. I was trying to make a joke and basically me throwing up. That team is horrible. I don't know how. The only reason why they make the playoffs is because that AFC South is just absolutely abysmal. They'll be out in the first round. The Dolphins, they're going to come up here in January, where it's like 10 degrees out. They're no shot. the Raiders, I mean, like you said, they don't have their MVP quarterback. They're thinking that he might be available for the Super Bowl, but even then, that's a stretch. What other team can you even see of as possibly having a threat? The only other team would be like the Chiefs, and that's just because their quarterback isn't horrible. But they still got to come into Gillette Stadium in January to win.
I think it's kind of a weak playoff picture in the AFC, but granted, that kind of happens a lot. I mean, you don't have the Denver Broncos in it. There's no Peyton Manning there, so they didn't make the playoffs, and that would have been a team I would be worried about if you went to Denver. You look at the Miami Dolphins. Ryan Tannehill is not going to be playing. That would probably be the second team that I'd fear would be the Miami Dolphins, just because I think they'd give you a tough run. But coming into New England, Ryan Tannehill, I would be worried about that, but that's not going to happen. You look at the Houston Texans, the AFC South, you can win 9 games a year and you're going to make the playoffs. The thing is with Bill O'Brien is he hasn't had a quarterback. And you saw last year they had that mess with Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, and Brian Hoyer played that playoff game for them and he was awful. Then this year, basically what happened was Bill O'Brien said, go get me your quarterback. And the best one on the market happened to be Brock Osweiler, who swindled him out of $30+ million guaranteed. And he blew. So now you have Tom Savage, a third-year quarterback, playing for them, and he's going to be their starting quarterback in the playoffs. And it's kind of a joke. So you kind of write off the Houston Texans. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Alex Smith is a competent quarterback, but is he an elite-level quarterback? No. He's not on the Tom Brady level. He's not on the Drew Brees level. He's not on the Philip Rivers level. He's just below that. He's a competent quarterback, but Andy Reid coming into New England, somehow they're going to find a way to mess it up. And Alex Smith isn't a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He is a game manager, probably one of the better game managers in the game, but that's all he is. Oakland, I was worried about, but Derek Carr is out. So there's really no worries if you look at that team as far as that goes. Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger. He's played 8 games against New England in his career. He's 3-5. I don't believe he's actually won in New England. If he has, it's just one game. So I'm not worried about that team. What was that?
Who did you just say possibly
Ben Roethlisberger is 3-5 in his career against New England. I believe he's winless in New England as a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. But it's kind of interesting when you look. That's probably the team you have to worry about, just because he's been there before. He's won playoff games and he's won Super Bowls. So that's the only team I'd be worried about. But I just think they'd get in their own way. You ever look around the AFC? There's really nothing too impressive. I really do think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the biggest threat to the New England Patriots. But I think every other team, they'd come in New England, they just poop down their pants. They really wouldn't be a threat. And that's kind of a shame. I kind of wanted a good AFC Championship game. I don't know about you, but I kind of wanted to see something. But I think the Patriots will roll. I think ESPN said the Patriots had a 60% chance of making it to the Super Bowl. 60%. That's insane. That's unheard of in sports. 60% chance. And we're not even through the divisional rounds.
That's ridiculous.
That's just insane. It's unheard of. Except in basketball, it's like you got the Golden State Warriors or Cleveland Cavaliers. What's that, like a 50% chance of that matchup happening in the finals? Only thing you compare it to in sports right now.
I mean, the NBA is just an absolute joke. You basically have 3 teams that would actually have a chance to win the finals, and all the other teams, it's basically, hey, fans, come out to the game and possibly see a good game.
Basically. Our next topic of discussion, we're going to talk about baseball, talk about the Hall of Fame voting, specifically guys like Roger Clemens, who played for the Boston Red Sox, Curt Schilling, and basically give our thoughts on that. Evan, what is your thoughts on Roger Clemens and Curt Schilling, and do they belong in the Hall of Fame?
Roger Clemens, both are weird. Curt Schilling, well, I'm gonna start with Roger Clemens first, mainly because I just have his stats up. But he over his 24 years, he has 354 wins, along with a 3.12 ERA and 4,672 strikeouts. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He was none of that. Wait, well, let me ask you a question first. None of that steroid stuff came out. When did all that steroid stuff came out saying he did steroids? That was in Toronto, correct?
Okay, so here's the interesting with Roger Clemens is he was never officially found to have taken steroids. Like officially, he never failed a drug test.
Yeah, I know.
So,
But
uh,
when did all that speculation that he did take steroids happen? That was in Toronto, correct?
I believe so. That was towards the end of his career, right?
97, 98. And I have said many, many times, if you took steroids before 2004, you're in the clear.
Yep.
That's when they started actually putting down the fact. Before that, it was free game. You should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think Clemens is an interesting kind of person to talk about for kind of a magnitude of reasons because I think the thing is, steroids have been around the game since 70s, 80s. That's probably when it started to really take its heyday. And I think you're right. Before the steroid era, before they started testing for it, you shouldn't, that was just part of the game. That was basically like taking an energy drink before the game. It was part, it wasn't illegal to do that. So I think Clemens is interesting. I think if he ended his career after the Boston Red Sox, say he retired right after the Red Sox, called it quits. That's it. Uh, what was that? What year was that? That was 1997. He went to Toronto at the age of 34. Say at the age of 33, after playing in the big leagues since 21 years old. If he ended it as a member of the Boston Red Sox right there, he'd been in the Hall of Fame just for that stretch from 1984 to 96. That would have got him in the Hall of Fame. Maybe not with 90% of the votes, but maybe with like 86% of the vote, he would have got in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that alone, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. It wouldn't have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he would have been in there. And I think the thing that I think people take issue with is not just the steroids, but it's the way he handled it. He went before Congress. He lied. I think that's what people take issue with. But I think Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame just because he led the league like six or seven times in ERA. It's just insane. 354 wins in 24 years. No one's going to hit 300 wins in this in this league anymore. No one's going to hit 200 wins in this league anymore.
200, maybe 300.
Maybe there's no chance because if you look at it, pitchers they go 6 innings. That's a quality start, right?
Uh-huh.
Back in the day, you used to go complete games. That's what Clemens did. He went out and he threw 9 innings, threw 8 innings. He threw 7 and it was considered a bad start for that guy. And the issue is you have relief pitchers come in now and they blow games and they blow the wins for their starting pitchers. So the fact that he got 354 wins, I know it's 24 seasons, that's a lot, but that's insane. He didn't just hit 200. He didn't just hit 250. Didn't just hit 300. He went 354 wins. That's a Hall of Fame career to me. And you know what? He should be in there. And I think you're right to say that it was before they started testing for steroids. I think you should be in there. I think the morality clause is a cop out for writers, and I think you shouldn't really look at that because you can't really judge. Who knows what Babe Ruth was like as a person, right? Or Shoeless Joe Jackson, or any of those guys who are considered legends, right? How are we to compare that? Mickey Mantle was on the Hall of Fame, and he was a known drug user. He wasn't a great guy, and you look at up and down the list, who are we to judge that at this point, right? That is not what baseball is about. The Hall of Fame is supposed to be the best players who played on the field, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. So the next person we're going to talk about is Kurt Schilling, who should be in the Hall of Fame, probably would have been voted in the Hall of Fame, but he had some non-baseball issues. Evan, do you think Kurt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame?
All right. Roger Clemens has 7 Cy Young awards. 7.
Yep. Yeah, he
Kurt
does.
Schilling. Kurt Schilling was he came in second 3 times in 2001, 2002, and then in 2004 at the Boston Red Sox.
Yep, he never won a Cy Young.
Never won a Cy Young. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame just because he was such a dominant postseason pitcher, and when he needed to be, he was just dominant. Yeah, he had some bad years in Philly, but that was especially from a win standpoint. But a majority of that was just because the team around him was just god awful. But he should be in the Hall of Fame just because he could show when he needed to be the best pitcher in the game. He could be the best pitcher in the game, and he had the drive to be the best pitcher in the game. Saying that, I don't think he'll ever be in it because, like you said beforehand, he had a lot of off-field baseball issues, and a lot of it just has to do with the fact with, especially you've seen in the last, say, like 8 months with the election, and he's been a big supporter of Donald Trump, and a lot of baseball writers don't like that, and they just haven't liked him just because he's been so vocal from the political side. Yes, he's trying to do that basically to get a second career, which frankly I really don't blame him, especially everything that happened with the 21 Studios incident. But it's going to end up being too much, and some of those writers are just not going to vote for him because they just don't like him. It's simple as that.
One of the issues that the journalists have really taken apart was a photo that he, I think, reposted or something like that. It was like a photo of a guy's shirt saying journalists should be lynched or something like that. And a lot of voters are pointing to that. The thing is, with Kurt Schilling, like you noted, he's definitely a big clutch playoff pitcher. He won the World Series MVP in 2001 as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm looking at his stats right now. He's played in 12 series. He had a 2.23 ERA. He was at 11-2 record, which is phenomenal. He had 216 career wins.
You got to remember, two of those starts came on one leg.
That's true in 2004 with the Boston Red Sox. The thing with Kurt Schilling is, the thing is, he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. Is he unanimous? Is he a first ballot Hall of Fame kind of caliber guy? I don't think so. But he's more of the Jim Rice level if you think about it. He's the guy that's going to get in towards the end of his eligibility. I think that's what he is. But I think he wasn't going to get in this year. Even before this, I don't think he was going to get voted in. I don't think he was going to get the necessary 75% of the votes. What is it? I'm looking at it right now. 2016, he had 52% of the votes. 2015, 39%. 2014, 29%. And 2013, he had 38% of the votes. So last year, the latest Hall of Fame voting, he had 52.3% of the votes. He needs 75%. So that's a pretty big gap to make up for. But I don't think he was going to do it this year. Maybe it would have been 2018. But it just wasn't going to happen for him. So I think that's important to note that he wasn't going to make it this year, and he might not have made it for a couple more years. So he still has a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. But the difference between him and Roger Clemens had the steroid issue around him. That was a question mark with him, and that's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. But you look at Kurt Schilling, and he has the morality clause. He has more of that, and people are just not voting for him because they don't believe or align with his political views, and I think that's wrong. I don't think that's why you should vote for players for the Hall of Fame. You should look at their political views, and if they differ from your own, you should put that aside because you're supposed to be voting for the best baseball players. And I think Kurt Schilling, his regular season statistics may be borderline Hall of Fame, but what he did in the postseason was unparalleled for his time, and you don't really see that. Maybe John Lester would be a modern pitcher compared to as far as clutchness goes. Josh Beckett was another one of those guys. But Kurt Schilling, postseason, if I had to make an all-time roster and I'm looking for one guy to start over the whole history of baseball, World Series, winner takes all, I'm going to pick Kurt Schilling every day of the week to start.
In the World Series?
Yep.
What his ERA in the World Series is?
What is it, Evan?
2.06. That is absolutely insane.
It's ridiculous. I mean, that's the guy you go with. If you had to pick one guy, you pick Kurt Schilling to win you that ball game. He's going to go out there and do everything he can to do it. And he should be in the Hall of Fame. Clutchness, I think, plays a big factor in that. And postseason performance and winning, that's all that really matters. In sports, it's winning championships. And he got it done with different teams, too. It definitely was impressive. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think that if you're voting with the morality clause, I don't think that's right. I think, you have that option, say if a guy kills someone or something like that. Maybe that's a little bit different. But the fact you don't believe in this, I don't agree with his political views. But I think he should still be in the Hall of Fame. And I think some writers take stuff too personally. Maybe I should get a vote. Maybe we should get votes, Evan. Think about that.
Oh, boy, the BBWAA would not be too thrilled about that.
No, they still have voters who don't even cover the sport anymore. Tony Maserati for 98.5 hasn't been an everyday reporter for, baseball for a while now. And he still has a vote. He's not around the game. The guy's not around the game and he has a vote. Like, might as well we have votes, right? So we're going to go to our next topic here, talk about fighting in hockey. Last night, the Boston Bruins played the Columbus Blue Jackets, ended up losing 4-3. But we saw something interesting happen. Adam McQuaid threw down his gloves. He was going to go with the fight. Both players dropped their gloves, and the referees, the linesmen, they came over, skated, and took them away. And it wasn't a fighting major. So we've kind of seen this trend in the National Hockey League where fighting it's not specifically banned, but it looks like it is banned. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on this, Evan. Should fighting in hockey be banned? And if yes, why? And if not, why not?
I mean, hockey's a faster game than it was back in the day. Back in the day, it was physical, gritty, getting goals in front of the net, putting it in. That you don't see that anymore. It's a faster game. I mean, saying that, those old time hockey games, that was good old fashioned hockey. Now it's everything with concussions and stuff like that. It's you kind of have to take away from it just because you have to protect the players. But saying that, I want to keep the fighting in there. That's what hockey's all about. Simple as that. But again, I get it why they're trying to stop it just because it's more of a concussion like thing. But yeah.
It's the league's response, you're right, to the concussions and deaths of players due to head injuries. So here's my little dig with it, is my issue with it, is you're taking away fighting from the game, and it does serve a couple purposes still in the current NHL. It's to get your team going. Sometimes a good fight will reinvigorate your team to step up their game and try to go get a goal when you're behind. But one of the bigger purposes it does serve is, if there's a dirty hit on your player or something you didn't like, you have to retaliate. And if they're not going to let you fight, I think some players like a Zach Ronaldo or even a guy like Brad Marchand's been known to do it. They'll go out and they'll have a dirty hit. They'll crash someone into the boards on purpose. They'll go for a head hit. They'll head hunt. So I think the fact that you can't retaliate through fighting anymore, the fact that it's being limited, is kind of, I have no proof behind this. The sample size isn't big enough, but I think that it may have or is increasing the amount of dirty hits you see in a hockey game. I think more players are hitting dirty in order to retaliate, because if they can't fight, they're going to find a way to retaliate against you if you do something to their players. So I think that could even create more concussions, maybe more brain trauma deaths later on, stuff like that. So I think fighting serves a purpose, and I'd rather have someone fight than someone retaliate with a dirty hit into the boards. That's just me. I think that's what I'd rather see, and I think that getting rid of fighting is kind of caused the problem in that sense.
Hey, you know what? I'm totally with you on that. You have seen some dirty, dirty hits along the boards over the last couple of years. The one that came to mind first was the one on Patrice Bergeron on the boards at the Garden. What was it at this point? It's like 9 years, not like 9 years ago, I think it was. That was just absolutely bad. You don't want to see anything like that. And like you said, you could start seeing a lot more of that.
I think you've seen it, especially like open ice hits where people are kind of going for the upper body, and stuff like that, behind the back kind of hits. But I think when you turn around fighting, these guys have a lot of anger, and if say you go out and I don't know, you hit the Torrey Krug into the boards from behind, and then Adam McQuaid can't retaliate, he can't fight. He's going to want to get revenge next time he's out there on the ice. He might clothesline a guy, he might do something else. And dirty, I think it just inspires the wrong thing. And I think if you can't do it this way, they're going to find another way to retaliate. And that's not a good thing to see. So the last topic we're talking about today on Beanpot Debate is our 2017 Boston sports wish list. What we're looking for in 2017 to occur. Evan, what is your wish list for Boston sports in 2017?
All right. Well, my top three are I'm going to start with number three. Number three, bounce back year from David Price. Last year, he was actually not too bad after that horrible start, but now he's got a year under his belt in Boston. I think he's going to be a lot better. And you want to see a guy that you're paying $30 million a year for actually pitch well. Number two, Celtics make it to the second round. I want to see second round action in the NBA playoffs for the Celtics.
How about just a win, Evan? I just want to see a win, man.
A win? You saw two last year.
Yeah, I want more.
I want
another win.
I want another win. Get at least 4 wins in the spring for if you're the Celtics. And for the number one thing I want to see in 2017 is I want one for the thumb.
Yeah, I think that that's probably my number one too, is the New England Patriots winning Super Bowl, and basically Roger Goodell handing Tom Brady and Bill Belichick the Lombardi Trophy, and then for Brady just to spit on Roger Goodell. That's what I want to see national television. I want him to embarrass Roger Goodell, And it'd be the most awkward thing in the world if Roger has to hand the Patriots the Lombardi trophy. I think he might resign if that happens. I think if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, he's going to hand in his resignation so he doesn't have to hand the trophy to the Patriots. I think Roger Goodell will run away from the NFL if the Patriots win the Lombardi. But I really do. That's my number one wish. I want the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. I want the Boston Red Sox to make it to the ALCS. I think they have enough talent. They spent tons of money in their rotation, probably one of the best rotations in baseball, if not the best. And I think their lineup should be good enough to make, you know, the ALCS. I'm not going to say World Series bound because I think they lack that clutch hitting. Maybe Pablo Sandoval will make up for it. Maybe he'll do what he did in San Francisco. But the loss of David Ortiz is going to affect the game like that, a series like that. So the playoffs are definitely something in the Red Sox future. If they don't, you're going to see some serious changes going around here. But I think the ALCS is what I wish for. So my last wish is going to be the Boston Bruins and the Boston Celtics, and I expect them to win. I wish for both teams to win a playoff series. The Boston Bruins, I think, will have less of a chance than the Celtics, but that's my final wish. I wish both teams to win at least a playoff series. It's something we haven't seen in Boston for a couple of years for both teams, so that's why I think they should have a similar goal, especially for the future, and to brighten that. So this is the end of the Bean Pot debate. Evan, thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and check out the website, chowderandshampions.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week and a great weekend and a happy New Year's.